With your host, Adrian Younge.
Comedy allows us to challenge the constraints of conventional views. It allows us to explore our weaknesses, our desires, our understanding of one another, and in today's politically sterile environment, it allows us to determine what is acceptable. It also serves as a coping device for us dealing with social injustice. Laughter helps us get through things. When someone shares a story of pain, racism, insolvency, hardship, the mark of true comedy lets us realize that it ain't that serious. It's time to move on and smile, or conversely, it is that serious. And why the hell are we still dealing with it? It's like music, it's like dance. But moreover, it's a satirical form of entertainment that distills the world around us, and it arguably gives us that positivity that we need. So comedy serves a function. It's a social barometer for us to discover what's acceptable. It's also an age-old antidote for pain. And throughout the decades, it's opened the door for white America to see the other side. The Western world considered blackface comedy at one time. You know, this is like minstrels dancing, being caricatures of black people, mocking them, reinforcing damaging stereotypes that still affect us to this day. But blacks started performing in blackface, making fun of themselves in order to humanize black people. Just to get some kind of recognition, you know. We had to clown ourselves to find acceptance within the orthodox of America. But this gave us an opportunity to at least have a voice, one with posterity. Then we moved into comedians like Stephen Fetchit, Amos and Andy, who perpetrated the lazy, gambling, and distrustful black man, as these were the only parameters that humanized us to some degree. Then you have the Red Foxes, the Flip Wilsons, the Bill Cosbys, the Richard Pryors, the Eddie Murphys, Chris Rocks, Martins, Whoopi, Chappelle's, and other comedians that kicked the door open under the pretense that we ain't who you think we are. But we are here, and we are changing the way people see us by making them laugh into submission. They challenged the conventional views of America by getting into the writing rooms, hitting the big stages, becoming executives, and using their platforms to demand to be heard, to demand the right to tell a joke that we think is funny. Yeah, I said it, that we think is funny, because comedy is subjective. Comedy is our social barometer as well as our antidote for pain. So some things will be funny to us because our lifestyle and experience is different. So from an academic standpoint, I'm getting at black comedy, and not because I named a bunch of black comedians. It's called black comedy because it's dark humor, dark comedy. Freud wrote an essay called Gallows of Humor, describing it as comedy in response to hopeless situations. This is a style of comedy that makes light of a subject matter that is generally considered taboo. Subjects that are too comfortable or painfully serious to discuss. A style of comedy that people understand when they are in the know. But a joke isn't always a joke. There's a transgressive nature to comedy that always allows us to show when we're afraid. But comedy is no excuse for bigotry. Comedy is no excuse for hate, but it's definitely an excuse to talk about it. Now, my next guest has made a career on making the world laugh. He has an innate ability to tap into the idiosyncrasies of so many ethnicities with sharp comedy and cultural commentary. He's made me laugh on a myriad of stages, ranging from arenas to small rooms to his backyard barbecues, even my own living room television. He's an icon and one of the most successful comedians in the world. Please welcome my Canadian, Indian, American, dear friend, Mr. Russell Peters. How are you, bro?
Hello, Adrian Younge. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yo, when I was reading, y'all can't see it if y'all listening right now, but when I was reading this monologue, Russell was doing all this stuff to try to make me laugh, and I just didn't look at him, and that's how I got through it. So,
Oh yeah, I was doing that on purpose.
how are you, bro?
I'm good. Hey, you said that the only way black people could get on was if they made fun of themselves, and that was their foot in the door. And it's the exact same thing with every minority. If you really break it down, like the only way we were recognized, Indian people were recognized, is with characters like fucking Apu or Johnny One in that whatever that movie was in the 80s, and Bachelor Party. Remember the pimp? That would be out of sight, dude. They always gave us these fucking horribly goofy, wacky roles, and I was like, ugh. And then
Exactly.
and now here we are today, and now it's almost illegal. But the funny thing is, like 10 years ago, I was doing a movie, and they really wanted me to do the Indian accent, and they were going to fire me if I didn't.
Wow.
And
So,
I was so mad about it. And then Sofia Vergara was like, "Why does it make you so angry?" And I'm like, she goes, "I have an accent." I go, "Yeah, you have an accent. I don't have an accent." I go,
wow.
"Sophia, it's like if every time you show up on set, they go, we need to see your tits on screen." Why? It doesn't have anything to do with the story. It doesn't matter. We want to see them. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Wow.
this exact same feeling.
Yeah. Well, it's deep, man, because one of the things I will get into is just your journey, but besides your journey, the question is why is it that when we play a role, it's deemed as being exotic? You see what I'm saying? So if you are acting, you can't just be a regular person. You are deemed as being exotic.
Well, you can only have one. The worst
Yeah.
part for me is if you watch any doctor-based show like the Chicago Hope or whatever these fucking ER, whatever those shows are,
Yeah.
if they had, and they're always like New York or Chicago or whatever,
Yeah.
they only have like one Indian doctor, and I'm like, have you ever been to a fucking hospital? That's all you see, you idiots. But they don't want to make it like that because then they have to make it somehow it has to become an Indian story. I'm like, no, it's still a doctor story.
Right. Right. Because
You're getting confused with the old with the oh, what is that shiny thing?
well, the point is that we have centuries in our colonialism defining whiteness as the norm and everything else being the abstract.
Well, here's the funny thing. If I say Chinese and Indians in America, they go, "That's a minority," and I'm like, "Are you
Right.
kidding me? We are the two largest populations in the world. We literally
Exactly.
make up more than 1/3 of the world's population. You can't tell us we're a fucking minority."
Exactly. Exactly. So before I actually get into some of my topics, one thing I want to say to everybody is, Russell, I got mad love for you. And you have a real gift. And yeah, you're a good comedian, but I think your greatest gift is that you are humble and
Ugh.
and you're yourself. Um, with you, there's nothing that I see where you place yourself above other people no matter what, no matter where they come from. I've seen you on many stages. I've seen you many times at your crib, many parties and all that stuff. And I always, watch you and I really admire your humility because as you've become more successful, you've become more benevolent and you've become obviously more observant. But one of the things that I see you do is when you invite people to your crib, it means a lot to you to show them around, you know? It means a lot to you to show them your theater or this, and it's not even from a flossing perspective. It's from an inspirational perspective because you have this thing where you're here now, but it's as if you weren't supposed to be here, but you made it.
Wasn't supposed to be here. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I never set out in this business like, yeah, I set out with the hope of making it, but I didn't
Yeah.
set out like I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do. I had none of that shit was in my head. You got to understand. I'm the first Indian guy. Started in 1989. There was no motherfuckers that looked like me in this game. The
Right.
people I could look up to were Eric Estrada, Paul Rodriguez, any of the Mexican ones because they were the only brown ones that I would see on TV. Eric
Yeah.
Estrada looks more Indian than I'll ever look.
Something else you've also said is that when you were growing up, you had to deal with bullying, and everybody had to deal with bullying to some degree. But with you, your perspective is a really ill one because you said something to the degree of the bullies put you in a situation where you constantly second guess yourself as if you shouldn't be here. But at the same time, it gave you motivation to exceed their expectations so that when you see them, you could kind of smile in their face
Oh
instead of
yeah.
hate on them.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's just dope that you have that and you're continually doing that.
But I think that's just who you are as a person. I think that's always been it's my innate tendency to be that way. Even now, like, people are like, "Oh, Russell, you're 32 years in the game. You're 51 years old." I mean, there's a lot of new kids, a lot of young kids coming up in the game, and I'm like, "Good. I
Yeah.
didn't do this to be the only guy." You know
Right.
what I mean? I want to see, these little young Indian kids, male, female, trans, whatever the fuck they choose to be. I want to see them, and I want to see
Yeah.
them make it, and I want them to look back and go, "Oh, that guy blazed the trail for us. He made it possible." That's all I want. It's them to look
Yeah.
back and go, "Without that trail, we would not probably be here right now." So that's all I care about. I want everybody to make it.
And that's how everybody should be. So,
Yeah.
but that's just somebody that's secure in themselves. So, as a Canadian of Indian descent, what kind of racism did your family experience in the 70s and 80s? Are there any incidents that you can remember just
Are
growing up?
any dude? It was daily. I'm talking
Wow.
from the age of 3. I knew right away at 3 years old. I was like, something's wrong here. Something's going on. The way white people look at me is not good. And
Yeah.
I was a fucking cute kid.
And
Uh-huh.
this is when you were in Ontario,
In
in
Toronto, yeah.
Brampton? And
First, I was
yeah.
in Toronto, and then we moved to Brampton, and then I really
Right.
experienced it because
Right.
Brampton was a very blue collar town.
Yes.
So the
Yeah.
white people were like poor white people,
Right.
and the black people were like your parents,
Yeah,
immigrants
exactly.
from the Caribbean or South America, wherever they were from. And the only people that didn't pick on me or say anything racist to me were black people.
Right.
And there
Because
was
you
no
grew
other yeah, there was no other Indian people around me at that time.
right.
We were the only ones. So
Yeah.
I went straight to the black people because I was like, wow, it's for me it was about safety. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with color. It was just like, oh, I don't get bullied by these guys. They treat me like an equal. I'm staying with them.
Yeah, but there's a kinship because the biggest population in Canada as far as black is from the West Indies, right?
Yes, yes.
So I mean, when I go to Guyana, I'm around Indian brothers. So it's like we all kind of speak the same language and thing. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so
I know it
you know
well. I know it well.
you know it well. But
Um,
but but how did that have kind of affect you? Because you you've said something very interesting. You said when you're growing up, it's as if you had to make a choice because first of all, when you're growing up, there wasn't as many Indians as there are now in your
none.
area. So
Like in my area, none.
right. So you had to you made a choice and it was a safety choice to be towards the blacks, but you would get clowned as why you with them. But then if you were with the whites, then nobody would make
It
fun of you.
would be okay. It was the easier route to take. And to me, I looked at it as like, I'm not a house guy. I'm a field guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not the guy who's gonna be, our house is burning down, man. So I'm like, good motherfucker, your house is burning down, and I'm out here with these guys and we're out. Peace.
Right,
I've
right.
always been more Malcolm than Martin.
So, it's really interesting because America and Canada both colonized by Britain, but Canada has more of a British influence than we do. And
Because
and and when
they're
what's up?
Commonwealth. They're part of the Commonwealth.
Exactly. So, one thing that Britain has done is they suffered from this kind of amnesia where they act as though they weren't great participants in the transatlantic slave trade.
Them and the Spanish
Yeah,
started
and
this shit.
Portuguese, right? Portuguese, Spanish, all that. Yeah, they were deep in it.
I mean, look, my name is fucking Russell Dominic Peters. My
Mm,
parents didn't change my name. My dad was Eric Reginald Peters. You know what I mean?
wow.
Like this goes back. My cousin did our family tree, and to trace when we were actually full Indians. And it wasn't until 1830 was the last time my family were full Indians. We were purebreds.
Wow.
1830.
Wow. So it's crazy because in 1833, that's when the British Empire outlawed slavery. But before that in Canada, there was about there's over 250 years of slavery because obviously Canada started by the French, then Britain conquered the French, but there is deep slavery in there. And a lot of people don't realize this, but because the British Empire abolished slavery in 1833 and America did, 30 odd years later, Canada became a safe haven for a lot of runaway slaves.
Yes,
Uh,
Nova Scotia
going
specifically.
Exactly. And so because of this, Canada hypes itself up on that, but then doesn't necessarily talk about its slave history. So, like, when you were growing up in school, did you learn a lot about it?
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. They don't even mention it. And I went to Catholic school for the first 9 years, and nothing. They don't even mention it. They don't even like mention the shit in the like. I'm an atheist, so for me, I would
Yeah.
always be in church, and when they would make us go to church, I would sit there looking around, going, "This is weird. It's morbid. It's creepy, and it doesn't make any fucking sense." And I go, "I'm not with it."
Wow.
As a
Wow.
kid, I knew. I was like, I would literally be in church, like, I don't know about this. This is not. And then people, you just got to believe. I go, no, I don't fucking just blindly believe. Give me some facts, stupid.
So, is that one of the reasons why you don't really do any comedy regarding religion?
Yeah, because okay, listen, I'm an atheist. I
Mm,
studied a bunch of different religions before. I was like, oh yeah, no, none of this makes any sense to me. I always found like it took away accountability,
mhm.
and I found it always gave you an answer to something you didn't have an answer to, which always bothered me because I'm like, just because you don't know the answer to something doesn't mean your imaginary friend did it.
Yes.
If you just wait long enough, the facts will come out and you will see how this happened. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
yes, yes.
So for me, it was about accountability. It was about gullibility.
Mhm.
And listen, I get that there's people that are very religious or somewhat religious or feel they need religion, and I'm all good with that. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
gonna do what works for you.
Right, right.
But I've never been the guy to just take, here's what you're going to do. And I go, nah, I need to know why. I need more details. I used to box, and everything is like boxing. And I would, my coach would be like, listen, when you throw that jab, I want you to throw your right hand higher. And I would be like, why? He goes, okay, put your hand lower. And then I put my hand lower, and then whack, he'd hit me. And I go, put my hand higher, got you. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm always a
Yeah.
hard learn, but I need concrete reasons as to why I need to do things.
No, that makes sense. And so you perform for millions of people around the world, and I guess that makes you an expert at understanding human sensitivity. How has being a comedian given you the courage to actually be an unapologetic version of yourself?
Well, I think the longer you do something, the more you accept yourself. I mean, again, the older you get, that's why old people have far less hangups than young people do. I
Mm,
always say this: if you watch the Quincy Jones documentary,
yeah.
you watched it, right? I would
Oh yeah,
imagine you
yes.
would have.
Of course, yeah.
I look at it as a line, right? His life is
Yeah.
this big line, right?
Yeah.
And all the things that he thought were big deals in his life that were bad or whatever were these tiny little blips. They probably wouldn't even
Mm,
register on the line. And
mm,
that's how I've started to live my life. I'm like, is this really a big deal, or is this just a blip? I'm going to look back and go, remember when I almost blah, blah, blah because of this? Well, I'm glad I didn't. The more I accept that way of thinking, the easier it is for me to go along the way and go, I could just be me. I mean, I'm
mm.
going to upset somebody. Yes.
Right.
But I'm also
Right.
going to make more people happy than I'm going to upset people. And fuck it, let's make people happy.
As we noted earlier, Indians are the second largest population in the world. But Indians are damn near invisible on our televisions. Everything is either black or white, and sometimes in between. You're the one of the highest paid comedians in the world, but we rarely see you on these American networks. And we've personally talked about this before. Why?
Uh, you look at the ones that they do put forward.
Yeah.
Not saying there's some sort of weird guilt thing happening in Hollywood. I'll give you the names of and this is no slight to these guys at all. This is just
Yeah.
the fact.
Yeah.
You've got Aziz Ansari,
Right.
Hassan Minaj,
Hmm.
Kumail Nanjiani.
Hmm.
Those are three names alone. Do you know what they all
Yes.
have in common with each other?
What?
Very Muslim names.
Mm.
And then they got Mindy Kaling.
Hmm.
Now all of those three men represent three Muslim names that the industry is notoriously. Oh look, no, we have, and
Mm.
look at their names.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And Mindy is like a darker Indian girl. She looked like they either go for they're extreme with it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So these have Muslim name. That's good.
Yeah.
That's an extreme way of looking at them. And Mindy's very dark and how she is. And then they have Priyanka Chopra, who's just tall and beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you have Padma Lakshmi, tall and beautiful. So you're either one or the other. There's no real people involved. It just shows you how fucking fake Hollywood is. Like, I'm built
Right.
I got a dad bod. You know what I mean? I'm built like a
Yeah.
real guy. You're
Yeah.
not going to see that on fucking TV. You know?
Something that I never really said to you, man. I remember when we first met in it was like 2014 at it was when we had the Prime show, I believe. When
Yep,
I
in New
was
York.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I remember meeting you backstage and as soon as like I didn't know who you were. I just saw you and I just liked you as a person. And we were just talking and you're like, "Yo man, I got a show tomorrow. You should come out." And just because I liked you, I was like, "You know what? I'm down. I ain't got nothing to do." You're like, "Yeah, it's at Madison Square Garden." And I was like, "Oh, they got small," like in my head, I was like, "Oh, they
Yeah.
got small rooms in Madison Square Garden? Okay, that's dope. That's dope." So I remember going that next day, the next even, and walking in to a sold out Madison Square Garden with you headlining. And I just could not believe that this dude I was kicking it with yesterday is this dude here on stage. And also, it was the first time I ever saw anybody do that level of ethnic comedy. I mean, you have this real sagacious, focus, intelligent thing when you do your comedy. But, one of the things I love so much about your comedy, like I said, is its cultural intelligence. And, you improv by asking members of the audience their ethnicity, their occupation, their family life. And regardless of where they're from, you have this encyclopedic knowledge of their background. Many refer to your comedy as racial comedy, but you actually poke fun at, like I said, their ethnic or cultural stereotypes
Yeah,
that really
because
illuminates one's cultural tradition. So, can you explain to me why your comedy should not be viewed as racial comedy?
because race is something you are. Culture, like you are a black man, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But culturally, depending on what setting you're in, if you're with your family, culturally, you're a Guyanese guy.
Right.
But I'm an Indian guy,
Yes.
racially, but culturally, I'm a North American kid.
Right.
So the color doesn't dictate who you are. It's kind of your surroundings that dictate who you are. I have cousins in Switzerland. Yeah, sure they're brown kids, but they're Swiss. They speak fucking German, French, English. I don't speak any of that shit, especially English.
So, do you ever, when you're on stage, do you ever encounter racism on stage? Do you feel it?
Not anymore, really.
Yeah.
Back in the '90s, you're doing these little tiny rooms. I remember this. this. So the N word for Indian people in Canada was "packy." Like that
Packy.
was our go word. Like you said that to me, and I'm breaking your fucking jaw.
Wow. Okay.
Like because it was never said like it was always said like you fucking packy. You
Yeah. Yeah.
picture it's
Yeah.
you
Of
change
course.
that word
I
for
get it. Yeah.
nigger and you got a
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
with the exact same venom. So
Right.
I remember this white lady was getting kicked out of a show I was doing. She was drunk and disorderly, just like somewhere in the '90s, and and she's getting kicked out. And I start making fun of her while she's getting kicked out. And she turns around, she goes, "Fuck you, nigger!" And I was like, "Huh?" I go, Listen. I go, if you're gonna be a racist, at least be
Yeah.
good at it. I said, I'm gonna give you a clue. It rhymes with wacky.
Wow, man. That's funny. So, getting on to another subject, you are an avid participant within the hip hop culture. You grew up being a DJ in
Mhm.
Toronto. You graciously endowed me with all your classic Source magazines, which I'm forever grateful for.
You still got them?
Of course, I still
And
got them.
let's not forget the wax poetics. Those are the good ones.
Yes, 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 yes. My bad. And in 2016, alongside other producers like Nelson George, you created this Hip Hop Evolution series.
Mhm.
Why was that important to you?
Uh, so a friend of mine, Darby from Toronto, he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, I want to do this documentary on hip hop. Do you want to be involved?" And I said, "Only if it's done the right way.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be about. I don't want it to start at like Nas and Biggie.
Yeah.
I want it to start in Jamaica before Cool Herc came to America. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to start the right because I wanted to start that way too. And I was like, done. And because I had relationships with all the cats that were in it,
Right.
Herc, Kaz, Mel,
Hmm.
you name it.
I met Herc for the first time when I was at your party in New York. I
That's
think it
right.
was
Yeah.
around this in 2014.
It
Yeah,
was yeah.
exactly.
He came to that show. Herc was there. Now Rogers was there, I think. A bunch of people. Everybody, Kane was there. It's for me,
Yeah,
I'm living my childhood, you know what I mean?
right.
And everyone's like, well, why don't you fucking people that don't know me like, oh, how do you just open your doors to all these people? I go, because I can.
Yeah,
These were my heroes. And they,
yeah,
they may not be as financially secure as I hoped and wished they were.
right,
But I am.
right.
And without those people, I don't have an identity. I don't know who I
Yeah,
am without hip hop. Like
right.
hip hop gave me a personality, a way to speak, a
Yeah,
way to think, a way to walk, a way to write. It gave me so much, and to just take that as to be entitled to it to me is a crime. And Crazy Legs was here a couple of weeks ago, staying at my house, and
mhm.
I pinpointed it to Crazy Legs being the catalyst as to why I love hip hop. And when I say
Mm.
hip hop, I don't just mean the music; I mean the entire culture,
The culture,
because
right,
because of the b-boying, the DJing, the rapping, the graffiti, all of it
right.
excited me. It wasn't just one aspect. Like these kids now, they like hip hop, but they just like this shitty rap shit, and it's not even rap shit anymore. It should have its own genre because it's trash to me, and it shouldn't be. It disrespects hip hop as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't mean I'm right or wrong, but it should have its own genre, its own name, and then I'd have no problem with it. You know, House music did it.
Yes. Well, this is the thing, and I'm with you. It's what we don't like about it is that it's not of the culture. So
Yes.
when we think of hip hop raised us. See, race is a social construct. There's no real scientific bearing to race, but ethnicity is our lineage, our culture. This is us, how we live. You can be part of any ethnic group if that is part of your ethnic group. So you are as Indian as you are hip hop. I am black as I am hip hop, but we come from this nucleus, and it's a perspective that we have. It's an idiom that we carry. It's a way of life. So that's why these things are so important to us. And also, when you sign on to be executive producer on this, it wasn't even about money for you.
No, I didn't
Like
make
you
I didn't
just
make a penny.
right,
I didn't
right,
get one penny from that show. I
right.
spent money on that show, buying flights, buying hotel rooms, whatever. I
That's
just
dope.
wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we had the right people on it. And there was people we wanted and we didn't get.
But when you're doing that kind of stuff, you're trying to make sure people could eat. You're trying to make sure people could shine. And that's the kind of things that most people don't do for others. And that's one of the reasons why the hip hop community embraces you so much. It's you as a person. And that's why I said what I said at the beginning of this interview with you, man. But on the other note, the blacks as entertainers tradition raises the question of whether images of blackness in television comedy play on or play off the long established black clown stereotype, and whether we are being invited to laugh with or at the black comic entertainer. How do you feel about comedy that lampoons the Indian culture by fellow Indians and separately by non Indians?
Well, I mean, listen, I've lampooned my people enough.
Yeah.
So I can for me to speak out against it would be completely contradictory, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But
Yes.
I've done it from my own personal experience, you know what I mean? And then,
Yes.
I did broader strokes. And the main thing to me was that I always maintained my Indian base when I did it. It was never for white people to laugh at us. It was for them to laugh with us, but
Right.
it was never for them. It was never designed for them to laugh at us. And the only reason, I get away with it with my people is because they know I'm doing it, A, from a good place, and B, they know it's real. It's not like I'm just making shit up. And sometimes I
Right.
make shit up, but I make shit up from a very real way.
You talk about culture with an informed context. You do it with dignity, you do it with respect, and that's why it's so funny. But how is this different at all to Christina Pazitsky when she's a white Canadian?
I no, she's not Canadian.
She's not from Canada?
Christina Pazitsky? No, she's
Yeah.
from the Valley.
Oh, I know she lives in the Valley, but I think she's from Canada.
No, she's not.
Okay, my bad.
She's married to
So
my friend Tom.
Okay, so what did you feel? How did you feel? Like, so for the listeners, she has a Netflix special, and on stage, she's a comedian. She said, "My mother married an Indian guy, man, like a diarrhea, not cowboy Indian." Before adding, "Temple of Doom, not Dancing with Wolves, 7-Eleven, not 9/11. I call that guy the Terminator every day." My question to you is that an example of overt racism hidden under the guise of being a joke, or was it just something lazy and stupid?
Well, so I've known Christina for a very long time.
Yeah.
I know that all of that is true.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
her stepfather's Indian. Her
yeah,
mom's from Hungary.
yeah.
Her mom's from Hungary. Her stepfather's Indian. He raised her,
Mm,
and she loves that man very much. So because
yeah,
I know this, I
right.
know when she says these things. And if you watch her comedy, it is all about getting the shock out of you. She's a
Yeah,
shocker. She likes to do it that way. So I mean, I know, but because I know her,
yeah,
I would never take offense to that because I
yeah,
know A, I know her where her heart is at, and B, I know that that's her truth.
right.
Like she genuinely did, and I've heard her talk to the guy on the phone.
Yeah.
She's talking to him. She goes, "On, put the Terminator on," and he'll come on, and he's really and she'll say that, but then the conversation is so sweet. You're like,
Yeah,
she don't mean that. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, my thing is that us being that we're people of color, you have to have some sort of humility on both sides because we say racist shit all the time.
Oh hell yeah,
But we're not racist, and whites say racist shit a lot. But the difference is that when they say things, there's a loaded history behind that. People died because of some of the shit that they said that was racist. Conversely, it didn't really happen like that on our side. But the question is it okay for us to do it?
yes, because it's about intent. What is your
Exactly.
intention when you're saying these things?
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
is your intention to make people laugh or is it to make people's feelings hurt? And again, it's in the tone, it's in the look, it's in the vibe in the air,
Right.
it's the body language. There's so many variables to saying something. Like, "Hey, Adrian, you little black motherfucker," versus "Adrian, you little black motherfucker." You'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, what the fuck just happened here?" You know what I mean? But it's as simple as that. And the
Absolutely.
problem is if you were to read it,
Yeah.
when you read it, you can't read tone.
Yeah, exactly.
If you frame it a certain way, you're only going to read it that way.
Absolutely. Well, you are the quintessential example of success to me. You became a star because you chose to be the best version of yourself. Your humility and diligence is redefining and refining people like yourself because you inspire so many to change. I laugh so much at your comedy, but at the same time, I learned so much. And to me, that is the mark of a true comedian because you use comedy in a way that humanizes those of us with a darker hue, those of us that are different. You also use comedy in ways that highlight the absurdity and bigotry that impacts our day to day lives. I want to thank you very much for being a guest on my show. Can't wait to come over to the
Come
crib
on
and kick it
over.
again.
Come
Yeah, I
tonight.
know. I
You
look
come.
at, yeah, you probably got the chef ready to go like last time, right?
It's Newmark's 50th birthday tonight at my house.
Oh, damn, dude.
Come through.
All
Let me
right.
tell you something. Let me tell this audience about
Go
Adrian
for it.
Young too. And now
Go for
Adrian is
it.
considerably younger, although he looks old as shit, which is really weird. Um, but the reason Adrian gets so much love and respect from the elder statesmen in hip hop is because uh, I look at him much like myself. He's a purist, but his purity goes way past mine. I'm like, well, I'll get on people who I'm a DJ and I go, really, what do you? I use CDJs. Get the fuck out of here. What do you use? I use a controller. Get the fuck out of here. Here's a turntable. Do you know what to do? I could figure it out. No, get the fuck out of here. So I'm a purist when it comes to that. And, when it comes to certain things, I'm a purist. But Adrian takes that purity all the way back to the studio where he's got an analog studio. He finds 1/4-inch tape to buy. I mean, that's a whole nother level of dedication when we live in an era and time where you don't need to do that. You could fake it. But much like myself, we hate fake shit. We want, if I want some big titties, I want real big titties.
I agree.
You are the real big titties of production.
Hey, you are the real big titties of comedy, man. Love you to death. Thank you for being on the show, man.
Hey, this is Russell Peters, and you're listening to Invisible Blackness. If you can't see mine, it's because it's invisible.